Not all veterans experience war. However, that does not deprecate or devalue their experiences and stories. Enter the story of Frederick Asper, a member of the Army Engineer Corps from 1956 to 1959. Mr. Asper was born in Lebanon, PA at the Good Samaritan Hospital. He had a mother and father and a dog. He had many jobs before entering the service. In his interview, he says,
I worked,
I think you already kind of elaborated on a few of them, but...
yeah, I
Excellent.
when I was 10, I got a job carrying papers. I got a job, I used to drive truck for the Railway Express. I used to pick the mail up at the post office and take it out to the train station in Annville.
Oh,
and then put it on the train.
Okay.
And then I'd pick the mail up and take it back to the post office. And then in the evening, after I got out of school, I would load the truck up with Railway Express, just like UPS is now. And I delivered it house to house all around the Annville area.
He also worked construction jobs and a catering job with his mother. In addition to this, he attended and graduated from Annville High School before he joined the Army Engineer Corps. Mr. Asper enlisted into the Army mainly because, in his words,
well, in the 50s, we still had to draft. And a lot of people, if you wanted to get a full-time job, the big industries were the steel foundries, the Bethlehem Steel, machine shops and stuff. They would not hire you because they didn't want to spend 2 years training you to do a job, and then you got drafted. Then they had to hire a new guy and train him all over. So they told you, if you weren't in the service, we won't hire you.
After enlisting, Mr. Asper completed basic training at Fort Jackson in Carolina. During training, you encounter many people, and the instructor that stood out the most to Mr. Asper was...
Oh my God. Sergeant Vaught. I will never forget that man to the day I die. He was doing his job, but I didn't like him. One day I got into a fist fight with a guy. He was telling me how he was from down in Georgia, and he was telling me how he disliked Yankees.
Oh.
So I told him how I disliked rebels, and we got into a fist fight. Sergeant Vaught caught us and broke us up. He made him get a toothbrush and a cake of soap and go into the latrine and scrub the floor. He took me over to the mess hall, and outside the mess hall, it was a concrete thing, and they called it a grease trap. It was about that deep, about 2 foot deep, and that separated all the grease from the kitchen, so it didn't go into the storage system. Well, he went and he got a bucket and told me to clean it out. I thought, well, this will be easy. Then he said, now wait, son. He said, you're not ready. You don't have all your equipment. He went and got me a ketchup top off of a bottle. And I had to take that and dip the grease out and fill the bucket. I was there quite a long time.
It was like multiple feet wide. After graduating from basic training, Mr. Asper attended special training at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, to become an Army engineer. Mr. Asper says,
no, we, after graduation, everybody was given a set of orders. And I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which was the engineer school. And I went to electronic repairman on infrared equipment, mine detectors, searchlights, and the generators that you use to run some of this stuff. It was, I don't know if it was a 6 or 8 week course. I was there quite a while.
Okay.
After finishing training, Mr. Asper's first assignment was in Italy, where he spent 2 years. During his time in Italy, he built military bases and maintained equipment for the units garrisoned at bases. He also went into the Alps in helicopters and built and maintained radio stations to enable the military to send messages to each other. He has many interesting stories from his time in Italy. For example, in his interview, Mr. Asper says,
What did you build when you were flown up in a helicopter into the mountains?
Oh, well, we used to go up in the Alps. You know, it's just one range of mountain after the other. And of course, one mountain's this high, the next mountain is this high, and then this. So what we would do, the signal corps that ran all the radio systems and communication would say they want to be able to communicate with Munich, Germany. And they would check the mountains out. And they'd go from this mountain to that mountain to that mountain, but nothing could be in the road. So then we would go up and go into the mountain, clear it off, and build a radio site. And the buildings, the towers, and these were directional radios. They shot a beam to one tower, that tower shot it to another one, and then that's how we used to go up to and maintain the equipment when they'd have trouble with their generators, and we'd go up every 2 months and just pull maintenance on them.
He also came very close to nuclear weapons, and he recalls that,
How tight was security around facilities where atomic bombs were stored?
It was extremely tight. They stored this stuff in tunnels that they dug into the mountains.
Oh, okay.
And then they had, the camp was set, they had a full company of infantry. That was 180, 190
Okay.
men guarding that post.
Do they have special gear or anything?
They had machine gun bunkers built into the mountain. The road was one lane going in.
Do they just drive the other way?
And what you did was you went there and you reported to the guard shack. They called in. And then they said hold traffic, and you would drive in. Once you were in, then traffic would come out the other way. But it was only big enough for one truck.
Okay.
And as you went in, I would say every 50 yards, there was a bunker with machine guns.
Okay.
And then when we went in, we had to completely empty our pockets. Everything, no lighter, nothing.
Did your car get searched too?
What's that?
Did your car get searched?
No, they didn't because we parked that, and then we had to walk.
Okay.
And then they put a guard on us. For every 2 people, you had one guard that followed you around.
Mm-hmm.
You could not smoke in there. If you took a break, you had to go to, they had an area marked off, and you went to that area and took a break. And no place else. And you did not walk off anywhere, because all the guards had live ammunition.
Oh, so they could just shoot
And
you.
they would shoot you.
Okay.
Mr. Asper also spent time in Africa, where he was based at an airfield which B-52 bombers operated out of, and maintained the equipment there, such as the machine guns mounted on armored cars. He had to maintain the machine guns because at the specific airfield in Africa, there was a significant problem with Arabs stealing equipment. By the time his service ended, Mr. Asper had reached the rank of Specialist E4 and received the Good Conduct Medal. Before returning to America, he spent a year in Germany. He says,
There was one family, Herr Mueller. I worked for him over there. When I got out of the service, I stayed in Germany. and I worked for him. He had a beer distributorship, and there was another one, Herr Brun. He was a police captain in Munich. I used to go to their home. They raised rabbits, and they take the fur and they make things, and then they'd have fairs, and I used to go with them. Kind of quirky, and of course they would take me to German restaurants and get real German food, not, you know. And all in all, there was another guy. He worked in a farm implement plant, Hunts Heidinger, and he had been in Dachau concentration camp. Then he was put in a penal battalion in the German army, and then he was captured by the Russians. And we used to get together like 3 nights a week, and we would play chess. And I did that for almost a year. Gabe, I never beat that guy. I played him to a tie one time. He was just, but boy did I learn a lot about chess. And I enjoyed my time in Germany. I really did.
When he returned to America, he says that he was received well.
And my mother was especially glad that I was out of the service. And I got home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she made my favorite meal, bean soup.
Like, what is that, like just beans? Like...
Beans, it was just milk, lima beans, and butter. And I always loved it when I was a kid. And when I walked in, she said, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "What would you like?" I said, "Well, Mom, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you know." I said, "I like bean soup," and she said, "Let's go out." And she said, "I'll give you a bowl." So she had it on the stove.
Mr. Asper readjusted well to civilian life. He says,
I adjusted well. It took a little time. The regulations, the discipline wasn't there. There were no curfews. But I didn't have a real problem. And I had a job by the second week that I was home. I already had a job.
Mr. Asper says that his service
It made me stronger, made me a little suspicious of people, because you learned some of that the hard way. It gave you discipline, and you learned to do things in order, and just whether you liked it or not, if it had to be done, you did it, and you were better for it.
Mr. Asper has led a storied life, and undoubtedly his military service took him to many interesting places. He has many stories to share about his experiences. From the peaks of the Italian Alps to the streets of Munich, Mr. Asper's military service took him to every corner of Europe and beyond. Thank you, Mr. Asper, for your service.